An eviction notice counting down, a building that doesn't forgive, a call that doesn't wait? What he discovered on that ordinary day wasn't just that the world charges a high price for weakness. It was a perfect plan to turn desperation into obedience and punish anyone who chooses love over convenience. A plan that would have worked if the most dangerous person in that place hadn't been deciding, in silence, whether he'd be destroyed or saved. This is the story of how answering one call changed 3 lives forever. The security cameras would later show an unbelievable scene. A man in a cheap wrinkled shirt sprinting out of a glass tower, abandoning the most important job interview of his life. Inside was coffee and money. Outside was everything he had left. Why would anyone walk away from a chance like that, knowing he was 14 days away from being evicted? What kind of father ruins his only shot just to answer one call? What he didn't know was that the one person who could change everything had just watched him choose. And she wasn't just watching, she was deciding whether to fire him or save him. Daniel Miller, 42, woke up before the sun, not because he wanted to, but because the anxiety had learned his schedule. The clock on the nightstand read 5:12 a.m., the red digits lighting a small room where 2 worlds had to fit. His single bed and his daughter's unicorn-themed one. The smell of instant coffee mixed with the faint scent of kids' shampoo, the last thing in the room that still felt normal. The bills on the counter were a countdown. Final warning, 14 days. Rent $1,450. Balance, $37.14. No credit card. No rideshare for him. The bus was the only plan. In the fridge, milk, 2 bruised apples, leftover pasta. He watered the milk down and prayed Lily wouldn't notice. "Dad?" A small voice came from the doorway. Lily, 7 years old, hair messy, pajamas with faded stars, stood there rubbing her eyes. A framed hospital photo of the 3 of them sat by her bed. Daniel never talked about that day, but Lily still remembered it. Daniel forced a smile. "Morning, Lillipad. You're wearing your serious shirt," she said, pointing at the only button-up he owned. "That's because I have a serious interview," he answered, trying to sound like he was joking. "Big job, big chance. The kind we can't miss." She reached across the table and grabbed his hand, small fingers wrapping around his calloused ones. "Good luck, Dad. I know you'll make it." That sentence hit him harder than any overdue bill. She didn't know there were exactly 14 days until they were forced out. Emily died a year and a half ago. The chemo failed. The bills didn't. He had sold his tools, his truck, even his wedding ring, something Emily would have yelled at him for. Then the small auto shop where he'd worked for 15 years closed its doors for good. "I'm sorry, Danny, business is changing," his boss had said, handing him his final pay envelope. Just like that. Now he had a printed map on the table with the route to Caldwell Facilities Group downtown. From their apartment, it was a 45-minute bus ride on a good day, an hour and 15 if traffic turned ugly. He had minutes to get Lily to school and make the bus or lose the interview before it even started. He got Lily ready, kissed her forehead, locked the door, and hurried her downstairs. But as they turned the corner to the bus stop, Daniel knew today was make or break. If this job didn't work out, the next thing to pack might be their entire lives. One call would cost him everything. Downtown Los Angeles was a different planet. Glass towers that seemed to cut the sky, sidewalks where shoes didn't squeak but clicked, people walking with coffee in one hand and confidence in the other. Caldwell Facilities Group occupied several floors of a building where even the revolving door looked expensive. As he stepped inside, the air conditioning wrapped around him like a whisper. "You don't belong here." The receptionist glanced up, first at his face, then at his shirt, then at his folder. "Good morning, name?" "Daniel Miller." "I'm here for the maintenance supervisor position." "Nine, She checked a list on her screen and nodded. Take the elevator to the 21st floor, conference room B. They're running a few minutes behind. He thanked her, palms already damp. In the mirrored elevator wall, his reflection looked older than 42. The grief added years. The insomnia carved them. The worry about rent underlined each one. The waiting area was full of people competing for the same lifeline. Men and women in crisp shirts, polished shoes, a few with leather portfolios and sleek watches. Daniel sat on a plastic chair by the wall, trying not to fidget with his folder. On the opposite side of the glass, through an open door, he caught a glimpse of a woman in a dark navy pantsuit standing at the head of a long table. She had the posture of someone used to giving orders and being obeyed. Tailored blazer, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back with precision. A small gold pin on her lapel read, Caldwell. She was listening as someone spoke, eyes narrowed, as if reading more than just words. He didn't know her name, only the pin. Candidates went in and came out looking smaller. A thin man with too much gel in his hair sat down next to Daniel and whispered, "They're grilling everyone about the last 2 years. Gaps, job changes, everything. 2 years." The time frame was a landmine for Daniel. Finally, a tall HR manager with a tablet called his name. Daniel Miller? He stood, legs slightly unsteady, and followed her into a smaller meeting room set up with 3 chairs. A pitcher of water, no windows. The air smelled faintly of coffee and printer ink. Opposite him sat 2 people, the HR manager and a middle-aged man with a tie slightly loosened, name badge reading Operations Director. They asked about his past experience at the garage, his certifications, the time he'd managed a team of younger mechanics. Here, his voice flowed easy. This was his world. Engines, boilers, faulty electrical panels. He handled the scenario questions with calm clarity. Hope started to grow. Then the HR manager tapped her tablet and cleared her throat. "Mr. Miller, I see here you have a gap of about 1.5 years in your employment history. Could you explain that? We also require availability for occasional night shifts and weekends on call." The question hung in the air like a verdict. The room suddenly felt smaller. He started to answer, then realized there was no answer that didn't sound like a problem. And that was the exact second his phone started to ring. And it would end the interview. The sound cut through the sterile room like an alarm. A loud, cheap ringtone that did not belong in a corporate interview. Daniel's stomach dropped. "I'm so sorry," he blurted, fumbling in his pocket. The screen lit up with a name that punched his lungs. Lilly School. The HR manager frowned. The operations director glanced at the clock on the wall. "We can wait a moment while you silence that," she said, tone professional, pointed. In that cramped conference room, under the cold white light, Daniel had exactly 1 second to decide who he was. He answered, "Hello?" His voice came out sharper than he intended. A woman's voice on the other end, breathless. "Mr. Miller? This is Mrs. Ramirez from North Hollywood Elementary. Lily fell on the playground. She's hurt and crying, and we think her arm may be broken. We tried calling your emergency contact, but the number we have is disconnected." His heart slammed against his ribs. The room tilted. "Is she okay? Is she—" He stopped himself from asking the wrong question. "Is she conscious?" "Yes, she's awake, but in a lot of pain. We need you to come as soon as possible. We can't give her anything stronger here. If it's a fracture, she needs to go to the hospital." The air left his lungs like someone had punched him. The word hospital triggered a flood of memories. Emily on a gurney, fluorescent lights, the beep of machines, bills, debt, loss. "Mr. Miller?" The HR manager's voice cut in, a little firmer. "This role is time-sensitive and we're on a tight hiring schedule. We've reserved this time slot for you. Is there anyone else who can—" "No." The word came out firm, final. "It's just me, her mom. Passed." He swallowed. The room blurred at the edges. The operations director looked at the HR manager, then back at Daniel. "We can reschedule, but I'll be honest with you. We're making decisions this week. We really need to understand your availability and commitment, especially after a long gap in your work history." Each word landed like a stone on his chest. Reschedule, decisions, commitment, gap. His hands shook as he grabbed his folder. His breathing turned shallow. He could feel sweat trickling down his back despite the air conditioning. The world shrank to 2 points, the door to the hallway and the phone pressed to his ear, where he could still hear the distant sound of children and a crying girl in the background. "I'm sorry," he said, voice breaking on the second word. "I'm really sorry. I have to go. My daughter comes first." Without waiting for a response, he stood up so fast the chair scraped loudly against the floor. The HR manager's lips pressed into a thin line. The director sighed. "Mr. Miller," the HR manager started. He hit the hallway at a run, breath tearing in his chest. He hit the elevator button repeatedly, as if force could make it move faster. His fingers trembled so much he almost dropped his phone. In his other ear, the school administrator was saying, "We'll keep her stable, but please, Mr. Miller, hurry." The elevator doors slid open at last. He stepped in, chest tight, stomach churning. As the doors began to close, a hand shot between them, forcing them open again. Daniel turned, wiping at his eyes, just as a figure in a navy pantsuit stepped into the elevator, heels clicking on the stainless steel floor. She looked at him once and followed. Because she recognized him, Victoria Caldwell did not usually share elevators. People adjusted their pace to hers, not the other way around. But that morning, security flagged a disturbance on the 21st floor. She'd seen the footage. The desperate man in the clearance rack shirt, bolting out of conference room B as if the building were on fire. Now, up close, the contrast was even sharper. Her suit was tailored in a way that made movement look like choreography. His shirt clung slightly to his back with sweat. His hair had that rough, uneven look of someone who cuts it himself in the bathroom mirror. The elevator doors closed, sealing them in a small metal box full of tension. "You were in the maintenance supervisor interviews," she said, not as a question. Daniel blinked, disoriented. He'd seen her in passing through the glass, the way you see a celebrity walking by. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." "What hospital?" she cut in. He frowned. "What?" "You said on the floor your daughter was hurt," she replied, eyes fixed on the glowing numbers above the door. "What hospital are you taking her to?" County General. It's the closest that won't turn us away." Victoria walked out without looking back. Her heels echoed across the polished floor, heading toward a row of reserved spots where sleek black sedans sat waiting. Daniel hesitated, then began walking toward the bus stop exit door. He had $2.50 in his pocket. The distance from downtown to North Hollywood wasn't measured in miles right now. It was measured in minutes, in pain, in what-ifs. "Mr. Miller," her voice cut through the emptiness of the garage. He stopped. She stood by an expensive-looking sedan. Her driver had frozen mid-step, surprised to find his boss blocking his way. "Get in," she said. He stared at her, confused. "What?" "No, I can't. I'll take the bus. I don't want to cause." She gave him a look that could silence a boardroom. "Your daughter has a possible fracture, and you're about to wait for a bus that doesn't come fast enough today. Get in the car, Mr. Miller." "But the interview, I just walked out, and you're—" She cut him off with a small wave of her hand. "The interview is over. Right now, your daughter is the only thing that matters. Either you come with me or you'll waste precious time arguing." The driver, a man in his 50s with a calm face, stepped aside, holding the door open. He thought of Lily, crying in the school office, clutching her arm. He got in. The car doors shut with a solid thunk that sounded final. The car smelled like leather as the driver pulled out. Tell me about her, Victoria said at last, eyes still on the road ahead. About who? He asked, still disoriented. Your daughter. He swallowed, eyes on the back of the driver's seat. Her name's Lily. She's 7. She likes drawing whales and space rockets. She believes every stray dog we see is secretly a superhero in disguise. He almost smiled at the thought. She thinks I can fix anything. He left out the parts about the nights she woke up crying from dreams of hospital corridors. The way she kept asking when Mommy was coming back, even though they'd explained 1,000 times. The way she still set an extra place at the table sometimes. And her mother? Victoria's voice softened ever so slightly. He stared at his hands. Cancer. We fought as long as we could. It fought harder. She's been gone? About 1.5 years. Victoria glanced sideways, just for a second. The muscles in her jaw tightened. I'm sorry, she said, and for the first time, it didn't sound like a polite reflex. It sounded like a memory. The car barely paused at a yellow light. Daniel gripped the edge of his seat. His foot pressed an imaginary brake on the floor. Breathe, Victoria said quietly. Panic doesn't make the car go faster. He exhaled shakily. He dared to ask, Why are you doing this? You don't even know me. I just ruined your interview schedule. She looked out the window, watching a blur of fast food signs and billboards pass by. Let's just say someone once did something similar for me when I was the one running. He didn't ask what she meant. Not yet, because her voice didn't sound like pity. It sounded like guilt. He almost asked. But the hospital came into view. County General. Daniel had been here before. And last time, he lost someone. The place where lives were broken and stitched back together, one invoice at a time. And what he didn't know yet was that this ride was about to pull a memory out of a locked box she hadn't opened in 12 years. The EO was loud and overcrowded. Daniel rushed to the pediatric wing, following the directions the nurse at the desk shouted over the noise. He spotted her before she saw him. Lily sat on a hospital bed, small legs dangling, holding her forearm, which was already starting to swell. Her cheeks were streaked with dried tears. "Dad!" she cried when she saw him. He crossed the distance in 3 long steps, all the tension in his body melting into a different kind of tightness. He cupped her face, careful not to jostle her arm. "Hey, Lillipad. Heard you tried to fly again." "I slipped near the swings," she sniffed. "It hurts. A lot." He kissed her forehead. "I know. They're gonna fix you up, okay?" Like a superhero. Behind him, footsteps approached at a calmer, measured pace. Victoria stopped a few feet away, taking in the scene. The little girl with tear-streaked cheeks. The father in the cheap shirt, the metal bed with thin blankets. "Who's that?" Lily whispered, glancing over her father's shoulder. Daniel turned. That's Miss Caldwell. She helped me get here faster." Victoria stepped closer, her heels soundless on the linoleum. She smiled, and the hard lines in her face softened just enough. "Hi, Lily. I'm Victoria. I've heard you like whales and rockets." Lily's eyes grew slightly curious despite the pain. "How did you know?" "Your dad told me," Victoria said calmly. "Seems like he's pretty proud of you." A doctor in blue scrubs approached, chart in hand. "Lily Miller?" "Yes," Daniel answered immediately, standing straighter. "We got the x-rays," the doctor said, flipping the chart open. "It's a clean fracture of the radius. Good news is, kids heal fast. We'll set it in a cast, manage the pain, and she should be good as new in a few weeks. Maybe no monkey bars for a while." Lily's lip trembled. "Will it hurt?" "A little at first," the doctor admitted. "But we'll give you something to help with the pain." "Can I pick the color?" she asked, voice small. The doctor smiled. "Of course. We've got blue, red, green, pink, purple." "Purple," Lily said immediately. "Like the flowers Mom liked." Daniel's throat closed. Emily had loved lavender, filling their old house with pots of it in the spring. He blinked hard to keep the tears from spilling. A nurse handed Daniel a clipboard of forms. He scanned it automatically. Estimated patient responsibility, $980, one section read. The number hit him like a second fracture. It wasn't just a bill. It was rent. He looked at Lily, then back at the forms. As the nurse took the clipboard away, Daniel moved to the head of the bed, holding Lily's free hand while the doctor worked. She winced, tears forming again, but he spoke softly into her hair. Hey, remember your whales? They're brave, right? Strong. That's you. Just breathe with me, okay? In, out. For a second, Victoria's eyes unfocused, like the hospital had pulled her back into an old memory. Miss Caldwell? The nurse's voice pulled her back. We need to make sure we have all the information for billing. Are you family? Daniel opened his mouth, about to say, no, she's just... Victoria stepped forward, her decision already made. Charge it to the Caldwell Employee Emergency Fund, she said to the nurse. I'm authorizing it for this case. You can send the billing coordinator to speak with me directly. The nurse blinked, surprised. That's very generous, ma'am. We just need authorization paperwork. Victoria signed a code on the paperwork and handed it back. He stared at her, stunned. You don't have to. I can't. I don't know when I could ever. Your daughter doesn't need you worrying about invoices right now, she said, cutting him off. She needs you holding her hand. But the money, it's taken care of. Daniel should have felt relief. Instead, he felt something worse, fear. Nothing this big ever came free. He swallowed, overwhelmed. Why? He asked, the word barely more than a whisper. She met his gaze squarely. Because someone once did something similar for me. And because I watched you walk away from the first real chance you've had in over a year, just so your daughter wouldn't be alone. The doctor finished setting the cast. Purple, just like Lily wanted. He smoothed the edges gently, checked her circulation, and gave final instructions. All done, young lady, he said. You can even have your friends sign it when you go back to school. Lily lifted her arm, studying the bright lavender cast with wide eyes. It's kinda cool, she admitted, sniffing one last time. Daniel laughed softly, the sound halfway between relief and exhaustion. He kissed her forehead again. See? Now you're officially part robot. I have a question for you. Mr. Miller, Victoria said, her voice shifting into something slightly more formal, but her eyes still held that human softness. Do you still want that job? She asked. He blinked. The maintenance position, after what I did? You walked out of an interview to get to your injured child, she replied simply. Some might call that unprofessional. I call it priorities. We need someone who can handle pressure, make fast decisions, and understand what truly matters when systems fail, she continued. From what I've seen in the last 2 hours, you're overqualified in those areas. His heart started pounding again, but in a completely different rhythm. Her next words landed like sunlight breaking through a storm cloud. I'm fast-tracking an offer, Mr. Miller. HR will call you today. Standard checks, but the job is yours if you want it. Lily's eyes lit up. You mean my dad gets the job? She asked, looking between them. Victoria smiled at her. If he says yes. Daniel was absolutely sure he misheard. Are you serious? As a heart attack, she replied. You'll start on probation for 3 months, standard procedure. HR will run the background check and work out the details. Health insurance kicks in after 30 days, which I'm guessing will matter to you. Full-time, with benefits, and yes. There is overtime. He felt his legs go weak. I don't know what to say. Yes is a good place to start, she said, one eyebrow arching slightly. Yes, he said without hesitation, voice thick. Yes, of course. Thank you. Lily squeezed his hand. See, Dad? She whispered. I told you you'd make it. Victoria glanced at the purple cast, at the small girl still sniffing but smiling now, and then back at the man who looked like the ground had just stopped shaking under him. Her assistant would call within the hour, Victoria said. The formalities would move fast, but not by magic. The real explanation wasn't at the hospital. It was the reason she'd been watching him since the interview. And she hadn't been watching him by accident. They stepped into the harsh midday light outside County General, Lily cradling her purple cast. The school had already arranged for her to go home early. She hugged Victoria's waist suddenly before parting ways. "Thank you for helping my dad," she said. Victoria froze for just a second, then gently hugged her back, careful of the cast. "Take care of that arm, okay? No more flying off swings without warning. I'll just practice on the couch," Lily promised solemnly. A neighbor's rideshare pulled up to the curb for Lily. Daniel bent down, kissed her forehead, and waved as the car drove off, his eyes following it until it turned the corner. "This is a lot," he said finally, running a hand through his hair. "The hospital, the job, you showing up out of nowhere like, I don't even know what to call it." "A Tuesday," she replied dryly. Then her expression softened. "And a little bit of unfinished business," he frowned. "Unfinished business?" She leaned against the side of her car, folding her arms. For the first time that day, she looked slightly less like the uncheckable CEO and more like a human being carrying something heavy. Daniel didn't realize it yet, but Victoria wasn't offering him a job. She was paying back a favor. 12 years ago, she said, I was a single mother with medical bills and an eviction notice. I was in a job interview when the hospital called. My son couldn't breathe. I answered. I ran. At the hospital, a doctor saw me breaking and covered the bill. Later, I learned he was on the board of the company I just walked out on. They hired me because of what I chose, not despite it. That job changed everything. So when I saw you run today, I recognized it. Daniel's eyes stung. I thought I just ruined everything, he admitted. But I couldn't leave her there. You weren't supposed to, Victoria said simply. When your phone rang, there was no script. What you did in that moment told me more about you than any resume ever could. She stood up straight again, the CEO posture sliding back into place. There's one condition. You show up on time. You work hard, and you don't waste the second chance. Because I'm not giving it to you as charity. I'm investing in someone who chose the right thing when it counted. He nodded. I won't waste it. I promise. She extended her hand. He shook it, his grip firm, hers steady. Welcome to Caldwell Facilities Group, Daniel, she said. The next morning, an alarm rang at 5 a.m. Daniel woke up, ironed his shirt, and tied the only tie he owned. Lily stood in the doorway, purple cast covered in doodles. Ready for your first day, Dad? As ready as I'll ever be. His phone buzzed. Confirmation of his start date, background check in progress, benefits information. He tore down the eviction notice and folded it. The fear wasn't gone yet, but now he had time to fight. 14 days hadn't changed. Daniel had. Downtown, as he walked through the revolving door, boots still worn but stride more certain, it didn't feel like a different planet anymore. At the security desk, the guard smiled. First day? Yeah, Daniel said. First of many, I hope. In an office far above, Victoria pinned his resume to a small corkboard behind her desk. Underneath a photo of her son as a little boy in a hospital bed, smiling bravely with an oxygen tube and a cast on his leg. Character over resume, because sometimes the job you ruin is the moment someone sees you. If you've ever had to choose between right and necessary, subscribe. The next story might be yours.